You sat in the doctor's office, you told them you feel anxious, you can't sleep, you're crying over nothing, and you walked out with a prescription for an antidepressant and zero blood work. Sound familiar? I've watched this happen to so many women, and a lot of the time the problem was never in her head, it was her hormones. So today we're going to talk about the thing that a lot of doctors won't test for and the thing that they'll hand you a pill for instead of actually checking, because I personally think that we are losing a lot of women to a misdiagnosis and that it's fixable. And this is just, again, my experience having conversations with brilliant women, with therapists, with doctors that I'm close friends with. And I see this common thread. And I thought I have to do a podcast about this. And it's just so timely perfect because this episode is sponsored by Ivologist. And this is the telehealth team that I actually trust for this exact problem. So we'll more on them in a bit because they're a big part of this answer. But if you're new here, welcome. If you're not new, welcome back to Boss Bitch Radio. I'm Diane. And before we dive in, one thing we got to make very clear. I'm just your personal trainer, health coach bestie. I am not a doctor. Okay. So everything I'm telling you today is things that I've either lived or what I've watched women I coach go through. So this is not a medical advice. I know y'all are smart bitches, but I just need to make that disclaimer. Okay, so don't start or stop anything based on what you hear on a podcast. Take this and take it to someone who can run your labs and is, the professional here. Okay, we're going to talk about the hormones that actually run your mood. I did a little story poll over on Instagram and a few of you actually messaged me back. So I'm going to share that this is like really super duper common. So we're going to talk about hormones that run your mood. We're going to talk about why women get told that a lot of times it's anxiety or depression, I've even seen, and what you can actually do lifestyle wise and the stuff that's in your control. And that's where I come in. That's where people like Ivologist come in, right? Where we're not just living with these symptoms and all these check engine lights going on, but we're actually not trying to solve the problems. And then we'll just talk about the next level step if you want to continue on the hormone journey. Now, the hormones that run your mood. Okay. A lot of times we think that our mood is like a personality flaw, like, oh, this is just who I am. This is how I woke up like this. But I'm going to tell you that it's partly chemistry and it's also three hormones that run like chemistry. All right. So we have estrogen, and this is where your serotonin is coming from. Okay. When it's healthy, it helps your brain make and hold on to serotonin. And serotonin is that feel good chemical. All right. So if your estrogen is out of whack, okay, it drops, it swings all over the place in perimenopause and beyond. Guess what also drops with it? Yeah, serotonin. So that's when the low mood kicks in, the tears from nowhere. You kind of have like a flat mood where you're just like, I'm not happy, I'm not sad. I'm just like a weird gray cloud. I don't know, but there's no rain. So estrogen is a big dial mover there. That's why we need to know what our estrogen levels are, because if you're feeling cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, it might not be because you are cuckoo, maybe a little bit, but it could likely be that your hormones are affecting this. And it's so hard for us to wrap our head around that. I know it was for me for the longest time. I just was in denial that aging was going to do this to me, but it's a fact and we can't just ignore it. Okay. Sorry, rant over. Next one. Progesterone, that is going to give you the calming effect. Now, speaking from experience, this is one that I have been on. I want to say off and on for the better part of the last 5 years. And when I'm off, I be knowing I'm off. I can tell. This is when the lower belly pooch starts rearing her ugly head. My periods get really weird and wonky. But nonetheless, progesterone feeds GABA, and GABA, that's your brain's natural off switch where you can kind of downshift and, chill the fuck out. And that's the thing that lets you settle down and sleep. So when your progesterone falls, the calm switch stops working, especially at nighttime, right? Anybody here in the 3 a.m. wide awake club? Yeah, I know you because I be you. I remember waking up drenched, okay, to the point where I would have to get up and change my clothes. That is how bad my night sweats were. It was terrible. And anytime I was competing, it was 1,000 times worse. So that's the buzzing anxiety that you kind of can't explain. Like it pops up at 3 a.m. and you're like, oh my God, I need to get up. I can't lay here. My brain's going crazy. I'm thinking of all the things I need to do today, but yeah, I still want to sleep. Like, yeah, it's not a good time. So that's going to obviously change as you age. The next one, testosterone. This is going to really fuel your drive. And I don't want to say motivation, but it does give you that sort of inner inertia to just kind of get your wheels greased and going. Okay. Women have testosterone. I'm sure that's not something I need to just drop here as the first time you've ever heard it, but we all have it. And as we age, it declines. So what declines with that? Your motivation, your confidence, your like get up and go of like, yeah, I got this. You want to follow through. You want to do the things you have these audacious things you want to do. And like that is basically taking its foot off the gas. When your testosterone dips, you'll start to get tired more. Your recovery will turn to shit and you kind of just are meh, right? Like you're very meh about things. So my point here is those 3 hormones run your mood and they're the chemicals that regulate it all. Okay. Your calm, your drive, your overall vibe. Now, if those are declining and they're not swinging at the same time in midlife, like in the right direction, this is why you're going to likely feel anxious and down and wondering what's wrong with you. And you think it's a mental problem. I'm not dissuading you from seeking mental health help. I think in tandem, if this is something you suffer with, 100% needs to happen. But I also invite you to question whether or not your hormones might be the actual foundational problem, because that's what I have heard from a lot of clients mimicking, and just kind of letting me know how things are going with them is, oh, well, I was on anti-anxiety medication, but it was like masking the symptoms of my hormone disaster that I was dealing with that I wasn't really aware of. So these two go in tandem. I've had really great conversations with my best friend who is a therapist, and this is something she's incredibly passionate about. And we're also going to talk about it too, as she thinks that a lot of women are being misdiagnosed and they're just not being treated properly for their hormones. So you're not broken, bitch. Okay. Nobody has been really feeding the system properly. And so this is why we have to go into sometimes uncharted territories. That's very scary sometimes and unfamiliar and like, oh my God, telehealth, like that's so weird. Like, is it legit? Yes, it's legit. A doctor doesn't necessarily need to weigh you and measure your height and get your blood pressure and do all these things to run the appropriate labs because they specialize it. And then also have a physician who can say, okay, your hormones are also sometimes related to cardiovascular issues, right? Like so many other issues. So anyhow, estrogen receptors, they sit all over your brain and directly regulate serotonin, dopamine, and GABA, which are these byproducts of our hormones, right? The chemicals that run mood, focus, and stress. So this is documented in the medical literature. So it's not just like wellness, fluff, and wellness theory. And I will link up all of the resources and the sources in the show notes for those of you that want to geek out further. But nonetheless, why women get told it's anxiety? Well, these symptoms overlap perfectly if you think about it. And honestly, oftentimes, I hate to say it, I was in the medical field for 10 years and I witnessed this for myself firsthand. I worked in internal medicine and infectious disease with 2 very diligent board certified physicians. And I saw it firsthand, right? It was, and they even complained about it, right? With some certain doctors that were just willing to just throw pills at the problem. And the symptoms that you see of low progesterone are going to be those of anxiety, low mood, no sleeping, brain fog, right? How many women do I hear talk about that? Irritability. Those look identical to clinical anxiety and depression on a quick little 10-minute intake, right? It's not like your doctor's getting to know you and he's like, what's going on in your life? Oh, tell me about that. Like, what about your childhood trauma? Like, they're not like, they're just going, here, let me just give you this to hopefully put a Band-Aid on it. And they're not really asking the deeper level questions aside from like, hey, let's get you some mental health help. Also, like where are you at in your hormone health journey? When's the last time you've had your hormones tested? How have you had a full hormonal panel that makes sense for your age and where you're at? Like a lot of times they're just slapping shit in your hand so you can, boot, scoot, and boogie, and they can be on to their next patient. So let me give you a quick stat. During perimenopause and early post-menopause, women are 2 to 4 times more likely to have major depressive episodes, right when hormones are swinging the hardest. Did I say that loud enough? Okay, because it ain't no fucking coincidence. And that's the map. That's from the SWAN study of women's health across the nation. Okay, the other stat I have for you is about 1 in 3 perimenopausal women get offered or prescribed an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety medication for their mood, even though the guidelines say there's no clear benefit for low mood that isn't full clinical depression and that hormone therapy should be considered. That is from the Pharmaceutical Journal. And the last stat, because this is the shit that fires me up and is why I talk about hormones and I get really frustrated because of coaching women for 20 years and seeing women just give me all of the runaround as to why they're not going in, well, it's not covered by insurance and my husband doesn't think I need it and this and that. And I'm just like, bitch, okay, the system's fucked, number one. And number two, what? Girl, you are your own goddamn advocate for your health, okay? Last stat. Women are more than twice as likely as men to be on an antidepressant. 15.3% of women versus 7.4% of men. And women get diagnosed with depression at a nearly double the rate. And that is from a CDC study in 2023. Okay. Our hormones are all over the place as we enter perimenopause, and it would be silly for us to think that it's just all going to be the same and we should wake up the same and feeling the same. Unfortunately, that's not the reality. So now, real depression and anxiety are real. I've experienced both of these before perimenopause and both of them after perimenopause, okay? Before perimenopause was situational. In perimenopause, when like life's good, I'm rolling with my life, everything's chill, it's hormones in my experience. And so, of course, for some women, medication is exactly what they need and is life-saving. And there is 1,000% no shame in that. Okay. I talk very openly about how I was also on antidepressants for 10 years, in my early 20s. So it's not that I am not advocating for that. Okay. I'm not anti-medication whatsoever. I'm anti-skipping the blood work. That's what I am. And I will fucking dig my heels in the sand with that. The problem is not the pill. The problem is handing out the pill without ever checking the hormones first. That's where I've got beef. Okay. So you don't get an antidepressant and a hormone panel. You get the pill and then you get sent home. And that's where the gap is. And that's where I'm trying to make some noise here. Oh God, I'm getting fired up and sweaty. I need to take a sip of my drink. Okay. Now, what can you actually do about this? I'm going to give you some lifestyle stuff, and this is the stuff that's in your control, bitch, okay? I don't like doing most of this stuff too, but it isn't a case of I like it and I'm doing it because I want to. I just know it's maintenance on the vehicle. So that's what we're going to talk about now. So lifestyle, let me just tell you, is not going to replace the hormones. It will do a pretty fantastic job of getting you pretty far for quite some time, but it stabilizes the swings, right, of it being so frequent, and it's free for sure. So that's what we want to start with here today on the podcast. But again, there's going to be some of the symptoms that are unavoidable regardless of lifestyle. Now, no brainer. First one, protein at breakfast. Okay. 30 grams before your coffee if you can. Blood sugar will crash and make your mood swings worse if you feed yourself a bunch of carbs and sugar. So eggs, Greek yogurt, a shake, pick something, don't complicate it, and repeat it. Just become a creature of habit. You're like, yeah, I got to get my fucking protein in. Big deal. Like I'll have something fun later. Okay. Lift heavy things. My podcast for the past 5 years has talked incessantly about the importance of strength training, and it even bears more importance as we age. Lift heavy shit. This is not like I'm doing my cute little Pilates or yoga. I love that shit. Okay. I did almost 80 yoga classes last year. That is not the foundation of my youth, okay? It's the foundation of my mobility and my balance and things like that. And it's important, but it's not the primary of importance. We're worried about bone density, bone health, metabolic health, and the proof is in the pudding. That is with strength training. And it's not going to be just these weight-bearing classes. So muscle is where you are going to hold that metabolic and hormonal resilience that we need as we age, just in general. So 2 or 3 days a week, resistance training with weights, not just being a cardio queen and a cardio bunny. And I'll tell you what I do, but it's not what you have to do. I strength train 3 days a week. And the days that I don't strength train, I still go to the gym and I'm making it a part of my daily practice. If I don't, then my ass is in my office here doing some kind of mobility, yoga, functional training, something kind of movement so I can keep the gears greased. Okay. This is more and more important as we age, okay? Protect your sleep like it's your job. A lot of us aren't taking that seriously enough. We're falling asleep with phones in our faces, the phone's plugged into our head, we're staying up way too late, and then we're getting up way too early to go catch our 5 a.m. fitness class, and we're going fasted, and we're just like making a mess of your hormones even worse, okay? So protect your sleep like it's your job. Progesterone is already declining and struggling to keep you calm, so don't fight it. You need to get your ass to sleep. Cold room. I keep my room at 67 at nighttime. Phone is by my head, but I am not on it. And it's basically I'm in bed at 9, so I can try to be asleep by 9:30. Same wake up time every day if you can. If I don't get up to an alarm, but my body just gets up, like she's just doing her thing. So protect your sleep. The more of it that you get, the easier it is to be a morning person. Those two are just, it's science, okay? Cut the hormone amplifiers. So alcohol is terrible for your hormones. Do I partake? Absolutely, because I'm a human, but my intake is not 3 or 4 drinks a night for 3 nights a week like it used to be every weekend. Like not every night, every weekend. Before that, way back in my early business days, I was drinking a bottle a night almost every night. Stress was real and shit was happening. However, when we know better, we just try to do a little bit better. So I will generally have 2 to 3 drinks a month. Okay. And it's got to be like earlier in the night, not too close to my bedtime. I'm a cranky ass about that because I know I'm going to sleep like shit. And I don't know about you, but I hate sleeping like shit. I can't imagine anybody likes it. Okay. But alcohol, tons of caffeine. It's like pouring gasoline. Okay. It's like pouring gasoline on your anxiety and wrecking the sleep that's already fragile because of our hormones. So again, I'm not saying never. I'm just saying notice what 1 glass of wine does to your 3 a.m. wide alert moments, okay? Now, especially versus 10 years ago. A great one that I love is I get up or move around if I'm not kind of pacing the house and getting some tasks done around here. When it's cool enough outside, I will go for a 10 to 30 minute walk after I eat. It just helps blunt that blood sugar spike and drops your cortisol down a little bit. I know it's boring, but guess what? It's free. And it works. All right. Now, this is just the basics, right? This is just the floor. It's not the ceiling with lifestyle things. We can get into real nitty gritty things like hot exposure therapy and red light therapy. And we could, all the peptides, we could go there with like extra little incidentals. But just as a basic lifestyle foundation, okay, this is where we kind of keep things doing their best. It does not refill a hormone that's running out. Here's what I want you to know though, okay, which is exactly where this next part comes in. Now, here's where I'm going to be straight with you. Again, like I said, you can do everything in that last segment perfectly and you're still going to feel like shit because again, you cannot out lifestyle your way out of a hormone your body has stopped making enough of. So at some point, You need the actual numbers. And that's where most women will typically hit a wall. And the wall is that you go to your regular doctor, you ask them for hormone blood work, okay? And a lot of the time, you know what you get? Like, here's the basic 2 little 3 things that we check. And you get told, oh, you're in range, or it's just, that's normal for your age. Bitch, what? Or they run one number instead of the whole full picture. That's the worst of it, right? When I have clients and they're just like, well, I'm going to tell my doctor what you recommended because, again, I'm not a physician, but I've done my due diligence in figuring this shit out for myself and going to integrative docs since probably 2012. And so I know there are certain things just are a standard when you work with somebody who is specialized in hormones, and then they come back and it's like their primary care doctor isn't set up to order what they actually needed. So it's just not their lane. It's not a knock on them. It's not their lane. They're just doing basics. And so a lot of times women just, we don't want to ruffle feathers or authority, and we just accept it for what it is. And that's why I think going the telehealth route with a trusted partnership of a team is going to be that much more beneficial for you getting the answers that you need. That's why I partnered with Ivologist. So they've actually sponsored this episode, which is amazing. And they're essentially a telehealth team, and they do one thing and they do it well, right? They make sure that we're looking more from a lens of like preventative health. So they'll order the full panels, everything you need hormonally, the stuff that will actually explain to you how you feel and why you're feeling the way you do. And then you'll meet with a provider who knows midlife women. They read it with you. And that's the great part, is that a lot of these primary care physicians are just trying to get you in and out and you're a number. And what I love about telehealth is that you get to really be heard by the person that you're actually working with. And it's not just like, here, and they slap you shit that you don't need. So you'll have a great actual conversation about what your numbers say, and not just like, oh, here, you're fine, here's your antidepressant, okay? So if you've been sitting there for years thinking that it's you, and by you thinking you're anxious and that's just how it is now, or I'm just sad now, or I don't, I'm getting older, I'm not excited for much now, I highly encourage you to get the labs before you just decide to go down a rabbit hole of more prescription drugs. If you don't have to, get the real picture. So I will put their link in the show notes, and you will get 50% off your first protocol because your girl got you the homie hookup. So if you mention Diane 50, you will get that on intake, and that will save you a heap on that first visit. So that is the part that the lifestyle cannot do for you. And that's the part I wish that more women would really just open their eyes to and really be open to. Okay, big deep breath. I know I just dumped a lot on you here, but here is what I want you to walk away with. If you are anxious, if you feel down a lot of the time, you're not sleeping well, you're covered in drenched hot sweats, hot flashes, you're snapping at people you love, just know that you are not making it up. You are not loco en la cabeza, and you are not broken, okay? But before you just try to act like this is who you are now and take this on as a personality, because then that affects everything. It affects your mood, and that just affects how you show up in the world. I just want you to remind yourself that it could possibly be your hormones. And before you just accept it for what it is, ask yourself, did anyone actually check my hormones? And when's the last time you've had them checked? Okay? Because once a year for me is not enough. I'm not a doctor, so again, talk to the professionals. But for myself personally, I find that because my hormones fluctuate so fast and I like to be on top of it before it becomes a problem, I get my labs checked every 6 months. When I was in contest prep, it was every 3 months. I don't fuck around. I want to be here a long time. I have grandbabies. I've got 3 kids that are doing some pretty cool shit. And it's up to me to take care of my vessels so I can experience that all. That's just the soapbox that I stand on. And I hope that you're standing on it with me. Okay. So again, I'm not diagnosing you over this podcast. I'm just telling you to consider a different option, and we could save so many women with just this one shift, quite frankly. So I would greatly appreciate it if you would share this with someone who you know needs it, because you might just be handing her an answer that she's been begging for if she's been struggling with a lot of these symptoms and things we've been talking about today. So, all right, I love you. Thank you for listening. I'm sorry if I got too spicy with you. Sorry, not sorry. But this is Boss Bitch Radio. Now go get your labs, bitch.